Suferința mea a luat sfârșit. Bună, Dexter! Oroare, oroare, oroare!
Sfârșit.
Cu toții am mai văzut filme proaste vinerea. Nici o grijă, nu se va întâmpla la Warner TV.
Ok?
Ok, bye.
Ești gata pentru filme fantastice?
Yes!
Filme celebre. Mâine de la 20:30 la Warner TV. De data aceasta cu S-a născut o stea și Orfana.
Yeah, I was born on West 68th Street in Manhattan. A lot of people think I've come from Brooklyn, but no, I'm one of the true native New Yorkers. I was born in an apartment on West 68th Street, 250. Everyone else in the family was born in a hospital but me. So I really felt I lacked something early on, but you know what? It was a great experience for me. I loved it. I see that place every so often, once in a while. I took great pride in being from New York. For the first 10 years of my life that I lived in New Jersey, I resented the fact that I lived in New Jersey, and people would ask me, where are you from? I would say New Jersey, and then rightly say New York City. But it's New Jersey, and I knew early on that I loved New York. You know, that stereotypical thing, if you're Italian, you come from, you know, you're soprano land, whatever, and certainly that's not me. I like to think of myself as an educated Italian. You know what I mean? Heterosexual, educated Italian. Not that there's anything wrong with the other kind, don't get me wrong. But I don't know. I think, you know, someone somewhere on the internet today, the information age, they put down that I'm from Brooklyn, and I never bothered to contest it, and apparently it's gone all through the internet. And there's no way that I can tell them I'm not from Brooklyn. I never lived in Brooklyn. I wouldn't know how to get from one street to another in Brooklyn. I'm a Manhattanite. That's where I was born. Now I live in Saddle River. Much of my informative years, I would say, was in the Bronx, and I was never really permitted to get on the L structure or the train to downtown because it was considered very dangerous to travel that far. And unfortunately, my children, who I later have, suffered the same problem that I had. I had no trust in the city. I thought someone would get hurt, you know, and I wouldn't allow my kids to go downtown by themselves unless I was with them. I wouldn't allow them to go ice skating on the ice unless I was with them. I wouldn't allow them to go rowboating unless I was with them. But as I began to go into the city of Manhattan, or the borough of Manhattan, I began to love it and realize how safe it truly is and how wonderful it is to be a part of. I mean, working in New York City was, as an actor, it was extraordinary for me. Because I was able to fall out of bed and go to work and do what I love to do, and that's act. I'm an observer of people, and most actors are. You see something, a guy walks by, a little tick that he has, some nervous energy, some woman walks by, something. Eventually, you probably would see that thing that I was most interested in, some movie character that I'd play. And New York City, those kinds of things happen more often than anywhere else. The only thing I knew about movies, and only because I had an uncle who, we were quite poor. I had no father. I had a father, but he was nomadic, and he had 7 kids in the family. So there wasn't too much money to go around. We lived on what Italians call pasta fazool, and if anyone had a steak, it was my father whenever he visited, maybe once every year or so. My images were movies that I had seen. The reason we got into those movies was we had an uncle who was like an usher, and he would sneak us in. And I would see the serials, and I would see men like Wallace Berry, who for the longest period of time was my father. I would look at him, the image, that's my father. My father was a burly guy, handsome man. And then I made up images of my father because people would ask me questions like, where is your father? You know, he wasn't there. But I said, well, he's prison chasing. Well, what do you mean prison chasing? Well, he's taking prisoners from Cleveland to New York. I had no idea where I came from. And I only remembered to say that because when I saw movies, I saw people dressed with hats and raincoats, and they were always police officers. So I developed in my own mind that my father was this cop with a raincoat on and a hat, and he went to Cleveland and back to New York. And that was it. I got my images from the movies. I love the movies, but no time in my life did I ever think that I could accomplish what they do on the screen. I never thought it was possible. I thought those people came from Hollywood. Certainly not New York, because we're real people. They are not New York. Some of these days, you're gonna miss me, baby. Some of these days, you're gonna feel so lonely. You're gonna miss my hugging. You're gonna miss my kissing. You're gonna miss me, baby. When you're long gone away, well, I hope you feel lonely. And you want me only 'cause you know, pretty baby, you've always had your way. Say, baby, when you leave me, you know you're gonna grieve me. You're gonna miss your tall, thin Danny some of these days.
I do have a kind of dyslexic, I guess they would call it dyslexic, I really don't know. But when I mean to say New York, I say America, and vice versa. And so it just comes out that way. For me, New York represents the essence of it's the idea of America, isn't it? I mean, the idea of all these immigrant groups living together, coming here, working out the differences, retaining as much as possible culture, and creating a country. My parents were born on Elizabeth Street, on 232 and 241 Elizabeth Street. They're still there, the buildings. They were born in 1910, 1912, or whatever. They were married in 1933, moved out to Sunnyside, Queens, I think, and then to Corona, Queens. And I was born in Flushing Hospital in 42, and then moved back to Elizabeth Street in 1949, which was kind of a shock for me, in a way, because I had been used to a different world. But from what I can remember, what I can remember, New York for me comes from that area that I grew up in, which was Elizabeth Street and Mott Street and Mulberry and Houston, Prince, Spring. Well, how should I put it? There were films that, I have many favorite films, and there are many that change you in a way, but I was enveloped in film in a way. Film was around me all the time, everywhere. You don't live in a theater. People think you do because you say that. It's just part of your life. It's a habit, in a way. And having had the asthma, yes, I did spend a lot of time there, but I also spent it other places. So film became part of the narrative of your life, so that I'm seeing things happen in front of me in the streets and in church and in school and in the streets again, and in the apartment, in the house, in the tenement, in the family, all that, in the hallways, very important hallways. And that, for me, is cinema. You see, so I'm saying, well, I see this kind of thing up there. It's the bad and the beautiful, it's Sunset Boulevard, but over here, imagine if this could be somehow translated. That also meant censorship, you see, because you had censorship at the time. But imagine what I hear and see, and what I'm part of, even to a certain extent, it goes on a screen. It's amazing. This would be an extraordinary thing. What's accepted as a beautiful image from Hollywood was not necessarily important here. There was another kind of beauty. There's still a lot of stories that came out of New York. And don't forget, filmmaking did start here in New York, Fort Lee, New Jersey, and that sort of thing. Great train robbery was shot here. So there's still a lot of stories about New York. Then New York had to be created in LA. Didn't ultimately had to be created. So there was an idea of New York, but in each studio had its own idea of what New York looked like, suggesting New York. Whether it's Von Sternberg's Underworld or City Streets or Scarface, or any of the films talking about early talkies, and particularly the Crowd, even, which was kind of a heightened New York in a sense, the King Vidor film, which was a New York of the soul, in a way. But I think they had to create their own idea of New York. You just couldn't get the equipment here. I mean, some people did. Vitor did, I think, or Mamoulian did to a certain extent, and a few others. But primarily, they had to create an idea of New York. And so, as a young filmgoer, we understood the codification of what those images meant, whether it was Public Enemy, or one could say that's Chicago, but not necessarily. Any of these films, we understood that it meant that it was a New York street. It meant this was a neighborhood on the Lower East Side. It meant it was the Italian neighborhood, the Jewish neighborhood, all the sort of thing that we would accept as being New York. It seemed to me that a lot of the stories come out of New York because of the extraordinary collision, in a sense, and the collision of all the different cultures and the immigrants coming together, all of this creating a life here in the streets, and also a culture. In some cases, subcultures, but very, very strongly a culture. And just the drive to write music, the drive to perform on stage, the drive to make films, the drive to write, all of this, painting, everything was happening here in the streets, really. Of course, I'm talking about a certain level, and that level fed beautifully into cinema, so that the stories were propelled, just like songwriters. You can't think of making a musical or anything about vaudeville or anything about performing without dealing with Broadway at the time, whether it's a silent film or not. And so naturally, the first sound films became all singing, all talking, all dancing, and that sort of thing. So you could see what you could see on Broadway all across the country, and sometimes in color, a certain kind of color which doesn't exist anymore. But in any event, I think all those stories were driven that way. Besides the other idea of the American epic, the idea of manifest destiny pushing west, So New York itself, because of its strategic position, even today, I think, you'll never tire of getting stories from New York. It'll always happen. There's always different cultures coming in. There's different, it's the old story, standing on a street corner in New York, you'll hear many different languages. Any street corner, And this goes back to even cabbies, taxi drivers had their own language. I always talk about this. They always had their own language. I mean, now the different ethnic groups come in, and you have a predominant certain ethnic group, let's say, driving taxis now. But back in the 30s and 40s, it was Brooklynese. The famous So This Is New York, Richard Fleischer's first film, where the cabbie is talking to the family just came in from the Midwest, visiting as tourists, and they put subtitles on the screen. It was Brooklynese. Then you see it in Arsenic and Old Lace and all that sort of thing. And it took a little longer, I think, for it to change. Again, because of the communication at the time, basically just radio. So things have changed with television. I'm talking about 50, 60 years ago, where Brooklynese stayed Brooklynese. It really did. And then as television started to pervade everything, particularly news channels, the accents start to get lost. In any event, these languages constantly are changing here, constantly alive, constantly creating something new. And from that, pretty much any place here in the city, Manhattan particularly, you have energy. That's the nature of this place, the energy of it. And it's there are 8 million stories in the city. What are they now, 20 million? 20, 15 million or so. It's still a lot of stories. And they keep coming. Everybody's got them.
Un actor emblematic.
Whoa. Excited. Worse.
Dar și un regizor de poveste. Clint Eastwood e un adevărat star de cinema. Iar noi îți prezentăm o serie de filme regizate chiar de el.
The hits just keep on coming.
Thank you.
Deci dacă îți plac filmele, vei vrea să vezi asta.
Yeah.
Colecția Clint Eastwood. În fiecare joi din 8 ianuarie la Warner TV. De data aceasta cu Hereafter, Dincolo de viață și misterele fluviului.
Previously on Miracle.